Hi, today I'm going to be talking about a Christian contemplative vision of creation. Now, let's talk about the terms first. So, contemplative, we tend to think of contemplation simply in terms of mystical or infused contemplation that God gives to the great saints. Contemplation, I believe, includes more than that. It includes our basic intellectual perception of the deeper aspects of creation in everyday life. More on that anon. As regards to creation, our view of creation, even sometimes I think as Christians, tends to be conditioned by a view of the universe deriving from the so-called Enlightenment and in certain respects from the scientific revolution. We tend to view the universe as reducible to nothing more than mere matter. And we tend to view creatures, even living creatures, as nothing more than machines. Complex organic machines, to be sure, but not as things possessed of an inherent life that's not reducible to mere matter. This is not how the ancients viewed things, as for instance Aristotle, nor is it the view of the Bible that calls the birds and the beasts living souls together with man. Even the word animal, living thing, is related to the word anima, soul. I think this fact's lost track of even by a lot of the creationist type fundamentalists who tend to view living things as complex machines with irreducible complexity, perhaps, which just means they're really complex and hard to put together. Thus, they tend to view them from a perspective derived from the Enlightenment, not from scripture or from classical philosophy. We view the universe and living things this way. We might make an exception for human beings who have souls. We'll tend to forget that other things do. So, I think we need to have a change of perspective. And we can partially change this perspective by understanding contemplation of the deeper aspects of things as a factor in everyday life and experience. Whenever we see a living thing or some kind of natural thing, we tend to see the whole before we see the parts. In this, we can see in our immediate experience something of a thing's deeper aspects, what St. Thomas Aquinas called the intelligible species of things. So, for instance, in seeing a living thing, we see manifestations of its soul, of the energies of its life, enabling its movement, its behavior. We can see by analogy to ourselves that some animal beings, that animals have some kind at least of a sensuous consciousness and of instinctual desires, of pleasure and of pain. Descartes didn't want to see even these self-evident facts, but these kinds of things, that which what the Eastern Fathers called the eye of our intellect perceives in and through the eyes of sensation, through these eyes and through our other senses. This perception of the interior aspects of things that we see through their external appearances belong to the first principles that we bring to any other further understandings, or they ought to at least. Unfortunately, because of some trends of modern thought, we tend to forget the wholeness of things and the evident, irreducible aspects of things. And we analyze them, which means break them apart. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It helps us to see the different means through which, for instance, the human or an animal soul uses in the various motions of its bodies. But we can never gain from a breaking down of things on a simply material level back to that fundamental unity of motion and action provided for by a soul or by a nature of the thing. So, in looking at the world, we should look not only with the eyes of sense, but with the eyes of intellect. We ought to see things as, in a certain sense, luminaries. But instead of simply having light cast on them by a luminary and thus coming into our eyes, we should see things as having their own interior light, manifested through their appearances, but that shows us, through the power of our intellects, something of their depths, of their inner nature, essence, subsistence, and being. Here we shall find something of the beauty, truth, and goodness we can find in creatures, even beyond their merely sensible beauty. And thus, we can be led to a greater perception of the glory of God in His creation. Thanks for joining me. God bless.